I try to give you a glimpse into a person in an instant. In a single glance of an image, I try to give you a visual of what their entire life was about if I can. What does the 60s mean to me, man? There's so much that went on in the 60s. Like the 60s was a decade of massive social, cultural, and political upheaval that it's hard to narrow it down to one thing that the 60s could mean. But man, to me, it was the beginning of creation for me because my parents met in the late 60s and later had me. And people like Andy Warhol and artists such as him ushered in, they rebelled against the traditional forms of art like Jackson Pollock's impressionist abstract, and they started to blur the lines between real life and art, which is where the sweet spot that I'm in with realism, portrait art. And I think that that was the beginning of my avenue being invented, if you will, for the show. I chose to focus on the jazz portion of the 60s, which these two gentlemen behind me, Coltrane and Miles Davis, played a big part in. Like the bebop era is my favorite, absolute favorite music above all else. Of course, that led into hip hop and all the things that came after. But the 60s for me was the beginning of creation and the beginning that created my lane for purpose in my life, because it led to exactly the type of art, the blurring of life and art, the line between that. That's the purpose that I chose, and it started then because they rebelled against the abstract way of painting. Not that that's not a great way of expression, but they tried to do more to the point of expression through art about things more accurate. And I think that's what I try to do. I try to give you a glimpse into a person in an instant. In a single glance of an image, I try to give you a visual of what their entire life was about if I can. And that's not an easy thing to do, but Warhol and people like that who strayed away from the abstract way of expression kind of leaned into that and paved the way, if you will, for some of us. So creation, it created me. The 60s created me in every way. I'd like you to come out to 1960 to 1969 at City Arts from September 18th to October 12th. Time is going to be 4:30 to 9 p.m. See you there.